What is up, football fans? I'm Danny Austin. This is the Live from the 55 podcast. We are broadcasting from the Nation Network studios here in Martyr Loop, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. There's a beautiful Sunday afternoon. As always, for these Monday morning podcasts, I do like to just be honest with you guys. We're recording before this blockbuster, must-watch, must-see game between the Ottawa Redblacks and Edmonton Elks. I say that facetiously, but truthfully, I think that game might be kind of fun. Looking forward to that. That's later this afternoon. But, we've already had a great, fun, fascinating slate of CFL games, games around the league. A lot of East-West matchups. In fact, they were all East-West matchups. And I guess that the East is currently up 2-1 on the West. That's something we sort of talked about on Wednesday, whether the gap has finally narrowed between the two divisions. I don't think there's much argument that it has. If we look at the games, Montreal, nice first half, lost 47-17 to the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Sorry, I'm literally reading this off the screen. I don't know how I got that one wrong. But yeah, 47-17 for the Bombers. Good first half, and then the Bombers just absolutely took over. We'll get to that. But that's a West win. And then the Toronto Argonauts in a really fun game. I don't know if you guys were watching it. I hope you guys were watching it. I'd be surprised if you're listening to a CFL-specific podcast and we're not watching it. But, Argos won 39-31. Fourth quarter kick return touchdown, or punt return touchdown was the defining factor there. So that's an East win. And then the Ticats beat the Lions 30-13. I don't care if you say you saw this coming. I don't believe you. In Vancouver, Ticats, what a win. And honestly, I keep being ready to rule the Ticats out, but then I look at them and they're 4-6. They're right now, they are very much on pace to make the playoffs. They had a tough Labor Day game coming up against the Argos, but they're one game behind the third place Rough Riders, who are in the West Division. I apologize, but if we're just kind of looking at the possibility of a crossover, it doesn't look all that likely. They're ahead of the Stampeders, who are 4-8. I think the Ticats right now, they're very much on pace to be in the playoffs, and it's unbelievable. I did not see that one coming, but I do think. Why am I wearing my backwards hat? I don't wear hats backwards. We're turning that around. I'm nearly a 40-year-old man. I don't need a backwards baseball cap. Wasn't doing that to be cool. Don't know why I was doing that. I apologize to myself. I'm better than that. Anyways, I think we got to start talking about the Lions a little bit here. Not in the sense of the Lions going to make the playoffs or anything like that. I think that obviously they're still a good team, but, you lose the Ticats and it brings up questions. And I think that it is part of a month that I didn't see coming for this team. I've had them in that first tier. We do sort of a three-tiered system here at Live from the 55, or we try to, just because I find it easier than just doing straight up power rankings. But I've had the Lions, the Bombers, and the Argos in that top tier. I don't think I can include the Lions there anymore. I just don't right now think that they're on the level. I mean, let's look at their August. They lose 50-14 to the Bombers on August 3rd. That's bad. That's embarrassing. Yeah, it's in the Bombers' house, but there should have been some red flags that we all caught there. My therapist would tell me not to ignore it. That was a red flag. I did ignore it, and especially because the Lions responded with an absolute beatdown of the Stampeders. 9 days later, they won 37-9. Huge turnaround. They were up 17-0 in the first quarter. Just looked absolutely electric. Just they looked like, oh, this is a team that can win the Grey Cup. And because of that, I think that you sort of forgive a bad game here and there, and it was easy to treat that Bombers loss as a bit of an aberration. Then last week, August 20th, they lose 34-29 to the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. Like games in Regina, it's always tough to win in Regina. I'm sort of saying why I was maybe ignoring what seemed to be a little bit of a slip. But then on Saturday, they lose 30-13 to the Hamilton Tiger Cats. The Ticats, like of all teams, I mean, what are we talking about here? I'm not going to call it anyone specific, but I will say that if you would go back to listen to last week's podcast, we had guests, and myself included. If I'm calling them out, I got to call myself out. We were talking, are the Ticats actually the worst team in the league now? They'd lost to Edmonton. That's how bad we thought they were. They've had a brutal injury situation, injury after injury. So if you're going to say that the worst team in the league, or a team that a lot of us were saying was the worst team in the league, strolls into your house and beats you 30-13, raises questions. And it's just a bad loss. And I'm sorry, I guess it's a big win for the Ticats, and we should acknowledge that, as I was saying. But if we're using this 3-tier ranking system, can you really, like, does anyone really think right now the Lions are on that same level as the Argos and Bombers? Like, are we sure they belong? Because I don't think that they do. I just think you've lost 3 of your last 4, and you fall at home to the Ticats. Again, the Ticats. Maybe I'm not respecting the Ticats enough, but I'm not going to say I think you're as good as the Bombers, who have won 5 straight. I guess they got off to a bit of a shaky start, but they're 9-2. They're a veteran group. I think that we know that, veterans teams tend to use them differently in training camp. So maybe it's not all that big a surprise that it took some of those guys a couple weeks to really reach their level, but they're just rolling right now. They've shaken off that early season rust. Um, no, I don't think that the Lions are as good as a team that beat them. What did I say? 50-14 a month ago. The Bombers are going one way. The Lions have gone another this month. I think that I'm not saying that the Lions can't salvage it. I still have them probably as the 3rd best team in the league right now. I just don't. If we're doing this tier 1 got a little closer, because you then look at the Argos and look, they're the reigning champions. They're 8-1. The only team they've lost to is the Stampeders. In a game where their starting quarterback went out early in the second quarter. I think that there's a real debate between who you would have as the number 1 team in the league right now. People would say, oh, the Argos have allowed the least points in the league. Well, they've also played 2 less games than the Bombers. If you actually average it out, the Argos are allowing 22.8 points per game. That's 206 in 9. And the Bombers are allowing 20.45, which is, that's more than 2. That's 2.5 points less, basically. I think that the Bombers have a claim to having the best defense in the league, and that offense when clicking, and I think we saw it click. So, against the Alouettes, we saw it click, particularly in that second half. They had a shaky first half, and they got back. We're going to get to that game in a second. But yeah, I've got right now tier 1 is the Argos and Bombers. The Argos are slightly ahead just out of respect. You're the reigning champions. Again, they lost a game where their starting quarterback, Chad Kelly, was out for most of it against the Stampeders, although I don't think that entirely describes that loss. But after that, I guess we're kind of getting into a close to a 4-tier system. But I do have the Lions and the Alouettes, who I think that they deserve respect despite what happened against the Bombers. And then it's honestly, if we go with the 3rd-tier system, I sort of have the rest of the teams in that 3rd tier. I think that all of the teams have a shot at the playoffs, especially if the Elks win tonight against the Red Blacks. It sounds crazy, but I'm not counting them out. But yeah, I probably have in order, I guess, I have the Riders, Red Blacks, Ticats, Stampeders, Elks. I might have the Stampeders above the Red Blacks and Ticats. I mean, who do I think would win both teams at their best? I think the Stampeders. But anyways, it's sort of a mushy middle. If we want to expand this to 4 tiers, which, I mean, there's no one stopping us from doing that. This is my podcast. I can do what I want. But yeah, I'd probably have still the Elks last, but I'm saying that before that Sunday night game between the Elks and Red Blacks. And to be perfectly honest with you, I've gotten so much wrong recently. I really didn't see the Ticats beating the Lions. I can't believe it. Absolutely shocked there, but they did. And for me, that's just ultimately probably the story of the weekend, is that the Lions this slide is real. Fortunately, I don't think that they're going to slide down the standings. I think they're still pretty comfortably going to be the 2nd best team in the West Division. If you look at their schedule ahead, which I have in front of me, they've got the Alouettes Saturday, September 2nd. That's coming up this weekend. And then at this point, I don't know who I'm picking. I honestly don't, but I'd probably have the Alouettes winning that in Montreal. Then they got the Red Blacks. The Lions should beat the Red Blacks. Then they have the Elks. They should beat the Elks. They got the Riders at home. Again, they just lost the Riders, but it's at home, so you're going to give the Lions a bit of a boost there. And then they got a massive game against the Bombers where they're really going to want to show what they've got. And then they have the Ticats at home and then the Stampeders to finish off the season. They're going to win 4 or 5 of those, so there's no real issue there. But do I think that, my own estimation, do I have them in the mix with the Bombers and the Argos? I just can't do that. That's just the reality. So, beyond that, I don't know. Man, the Bombers impressed me against the Alouettes. I know they didn't have a good first half, and I'd sort of said this was going to be a show me game for the Alouettes, and I think it was. They could have really turned some heads with a win, and at halftime, the Bombers were up 2017. There'd been a couple turnovers. You really felt like Montreal was in the fight, but this is what makes the Bombers so good. And I'm bored of the Bombers. It's been such a long run, dating back to 2019. I honestly understand. I've had people say, Danny, there's too much Bombers talk sometimes. It's hard not to. I mean, this is what they do. They adjust at halftime and they come out and they absolutely dominate. To the tune of a 27-0 scoreline in the third and fourth quarters. That was just domination. It was big brother bullying the little brother. And yeah, really showed that the Alouettes got a long way to go. Still like that team, not trying to knock them down. But to me, it also shows that the Bombers, I think secretly, I probably still think that they're the team to beat. I'm not. I had the Argos ahead of them. It's a respect thing. You're the champions. You have the best record in the league. You belong there. But I don't know. The Bombers they scare me. They're the team you don't want to face in the playoffs. That's the reality. We've got Cami Kepke coming on. I should have said that in the intro. I try to introduce my guests right at the start of the podcast, and I apologize for not doing that. I apologize to Cami. I apologize for any of you guys wondering who the guest is, although if you clicked on the podcast, it's in the title and on the YouTube as well. Either way, Cami Kepke, global reporter here in Calgary, has been doing sports for many a year. Has spent time in Regina as a reporter, is from BC, sits in the stands at most Stamps games, knows the league, and really wanted to have her on. I've been talking about it for ages. When I talk about our Fraser and Fig Chowdown, it's always Ian Busby, John Bender, and her. I think Ryan Ballantyne. I don't know how we're going to do that. We're going to need a bunch of different cameras, but we're going to do it. And I'm excited to have Cami coming on. We're obviously going to go pretty deep. Her and I were texting along throughout Friday's game between the Stampeders and Argos. I don't know. I mean, we're going to break it down. The loss matters for the Stamps. I know that, but what a game. I had so much fun watching that. I really, really did. That's one of those games where it's like, wait, there are people who don't like the CFL? Let's put this game on. And ultimately, story of the season for the Stamps. They were tied in the fourth quarter, allow a punt return touchdown. The Argos get a lot of those. That's a feature, not a bug. But it just feels like the big play is always going against the Stamps. And there were a lot of big plays, so that's a unfair reading of the game. But the big sort of game-defining play went for the Argos and it cost the Stamps. But it was still, what a game. Late summer, the X is going on. Covered a number of those games. And it was just, it was incredibly impressive from the Argos. And I liked a lot of what I saw from the Stampeders offense. Really felt like they were clicking. We'll say very quickly, Deshaun Amos suffered what appeared to be quite a serious lower leg injury. Deshaun obviously got his start in Calgary 2018. Still think I tweeted about it, but it's one of the craziest stories. He comes in for a team that is absolutely cruising towards the Grey Cup. And I believe he signed in sort of early October. 9 days later, Brandon Smith needed a break, and Deshaun Amos was starting at halfback. That doesn't really happen for a championship team. It just speaks to the level of this guy as an athlete and as a football player. And he honestly, truthfully, and I wouldn't say anything bad about anyone, but Deshaun was always just a good guy, just humble, kind, very generous with his time towards us media members, and just a really nice guy. And ended up signing with the Argos. Obviously, won the Grey Cup last year, but is truly one of the good guys. So it hurt me to see him get hurt. We wish him the best recovery. Football's a tough sport. You hate seeing it happen, but Deshaun's one of my favorites, so that stunk to see. And felt really bad about that one. But anyways, we have a lot of Stamps talks to get through. There's just a lot to talk about. This was a wild week. I've already sort of gone on 14, 15 minutes into the podcast here, so we're going to get to Cami. Quick thank you, obviously, to our sponsors, Mugs Pub. We love them. We got the ad read coming up, but we really do appreciate them. No better place to go grab a beer. Their fish and chips, the pizza's great, food's all great. And then, of course, Fraser and Fig, which, as I mentioned, my dad picked up one of their charcuterie boards on Tuesday for a nice family dinner out at my aunt's ranch. So it was absolutely a hit. It was great. So we appreciate both of them. We appreciate you. Please like and subscribe, listen. Tell your friends. Trying to build something here. We have our studio. CFL is sending a bunch of decor for me, apparently, which I very much appreciate. So shout out Lucas. Shout out everyone there. Shout out our listeners. Shout out our sponsors. Let's get to Cami Kepke. Thank you. Let's go. Guys, let's say you're having a party. Let's say you're having a picnic. Let's say you're having any occasion. I got to talk to you about Fraser and Fig because I love these guys. Here in Martin Loop, a couple storefronts down from our studio here. Fraser and Fig, man, these guys do these delicious elevated cheese and charcuterie boxes. You know, they're made with all these fresh artisanal ingredients, on-demand grazing, pickup, delivery. You got it. Just let them know what you want. They will get it to you. Honestly, I'm such a big fan. I had a picnic a little while ago. I brought one of their curated boxes and it was a huge hit. I looked great. People loved it. We're hungry. They weren't hungry anymore. These ready to go boxes, they got them in 4 sizes. All their boxes come with meat, cheese, dried fruit, fresh fruit, nuts, olives, pickles, and carrots. Their selections vary from month to month. Choices are always new. You know, just because you've had one doesn't mean you've had them all. I love Fraser and Fig. I love having them as a sponsor. They're the best. Make sure you check them out. Tell them Live from the 55 sent you. All right, Cami Kepke. I've already introduced you in my little introduction, so people know who you are. But you're with Global.
Wonderful.
You are a sports. Honestly, you're more of a sports fanatic than I am. And I
I
don't.
don't know about that.
I mean, I think so. I will say I tried to explain. You grew up in BC. I mean, people who know me know you because obviously we've co-hosted Rob Kerr show, filling in for him a number of times. I think this is the first time I've had you on the CFL pod.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
so excited.
yeah, so let's go through. You grew up in Creston. Were you a Lions fan growing up?
No, I was a Seahawks fan growing up. I wasn't that big on the CFL when I was younger, but when I got to college, that was when I really kind of became more ride or die CFL, and I started watching the NFL less and less, and to this day, I do definitely watch more CFL than NFL.
Yes, and I mean, worked in Regina, so I know some of your friends who worked in Regina have become sort of Riders fans, but I don't care about where your allegiance lies. But you know, you have now
I
been in
don't have
Calgary.
allegiances. I will say this, the craziest thing about working as a news reporter in Regina was how much the Rough Riders permeate everything. I am not kidding. You can look up the records for this, but I covered a murder trial where, in the cross-examination, a witness was asked, "Well, how do you know this happened at this time? You already admitted you were intoxicated." And the witness on the stand that I was walking back from the old Taylor Field. The Riders beat the Bombers 39-27. I don't know if that was the score, but literally the Rough Riders were used as a frame of reference in a murder trial, and that
As
is that
admissible
on the green
evidence.
and white.
I don't actually know what the official legal definition of admissible evidence is, but like the fact that the score of a Riders game basically counts.
Bonus
That is
points for
amazing.
Taylor Field.
I feel like I could read a bunch of our texts from Friday night while we were both watching the Sam's game. I know that at one point we were both just like, this game has everything. You referred to it as being like the Stefan sketch from SNL.
Stefan.
Stefan, I apologize. There you go. Stefan. How embarrassing for me. What a game. I guess let's start there. That
Oh my
was I do feel like because we have to do some of the doom and gloom stuff,
god.
because the situation here in Calgary is becoming more just more tenuous, I guess, because ultimately like the Riders won last week and then the Tigers won. So, you know,
Mhm.
they have a fight ahead of them. But how much fun was that game?
Oh my gosh. Like, it's nice when just when you think you know how the game is going to shake out or which way the momentum is swinging, something happens that just throws you back in your seat and you have to just like exclaim out loud. It was bananas. But I'm starting to feel some parallels between the Stampeders and other team you cover in the Flames. Once the offense starts to go, it goes, but you're still losing by 1 or 2 scores. There are, what, 4 games that really could be in the win column for the Stampeders at this point?
100%.
Yeah, which is disappointing, and I think we both talked about why we think the offense has had some struggles, and I don't think that coincides with, what a lot of fans are saying.
Oh, I replied like to your point just yesterday morning. Like when I woke up,
Mhm,
I often try to or reply to a couple people on Twitter at the very least. Um, and I said I was like between I believe the Flames lost 17 overtime games last year, and now these Stamps like so many games have come down to one play. They've
mhm.
lost 2 overtime, but
2
beyond that, I
overtime,
mean,
yeah.
yeah. I've just covered a lot of really close losses this year where it has felt like, oh, for both Calgary sports teams, like if the big play goes your way, you win. Now, that's not entirely fair because there were a lot of big plays in that Argos Stamps game. Like, it was part of the
Mhm.
fun. Was Mark and Michelle had a huge touchdown. Reggie
Talking to Vaughn,
Bagleton.
you got a little bit of redemption there
Oh,
with
you got
his
a lot of
touchdown.
redemption. And I I mean, I was one of the people who was pretty hard. Luther had to make that catch against the
Mhm.
Bombers, and then they would have won that game. And I certainly made that point. Never was I trying to say that I'd given up on Luther Hackett or that he was a bad
Well, no,
player.
like, there were also many plays where the Stamps could have won that game.
Well, and that's I
That
mean
one was
this
a bit of a gimme, yeah.
this is something that I spoke with a coach a year or two after the 2017 Grey Cup, which is the one where Kamar Jordan had the fumble sort of on the 1 yard line and the Argos returned it. And I was like, it's got to be so hard to get over when this sort of one play cost you the game. And the coach looked at me like I was the stupidest person he'd ever met. Which, like, rightfully, because I think that is like that's what we do in sports media is focus on the one highlight that he was like, well, Danny, do you know how many balls we could have intercepted that we didn't in that game that would have won us
Mhm.
the game? Like, there's a million things that you guys don't see. That there's every play. If something goes a little different, you might wind up, you could force a fumble. Like, so he said, you can't just focus on the one big highlight. You have to focus on the fact that there's every play is a big play and has that potential. And when they don't go your way, that's why you win or you lose. But the Stamps have allowed more return touchdowns than any team in the league.
I mean, it makes it feel a little bit better when the guy who's doing it is actually setting franchise records, and he's not just doing it against you. But yeah, special teams really needs to figure that one out. One other big player I do want to touch on, like before we get too much into special teams, though, 'cause we talked about Luther, we talked about Mark and Michelle.
Reggie.
Reggie Bagleton had an insane game. I can't believe those were his first touchdowns of the season. That first 200-yard game, he went bananas. As
Well, I mean,
I told you in our group chat or just our texting, is Reggie Bagleton a small town in BC? Because that man has yaks.
yes, you did text me that.
That is a good Kootenai joke.
Yes, he was incredible, like legitimately incredible. And it's one of those things where um I don't know how many times I've tweeted this season and last season, just give the ball to Reggie. Like, at some point, just get the ball in the hands of your best players, and that's easier said than done. Obviously, you can't only throw the ball to Reggie, but I truly believe that he is one of the top two or three receivers in the CFL. And when you can get that ball to him, as you said, the yards after catch are incredible. But he's also like a legitimate deep ball threat. He's quick. He's physical. He is the guy who this offense needs to go to. And I truly believe that is. We always talk about the Stampeders being a running offense. I actually think Reggie is the most important piece beyond quarterback, obviously. But he was incredible. And right now, I can't say this
Which is
officially,
crazy because,
but
like, their run game wasn't having much of an impact on that game as a whole.
no, I mean, the Argos
It was
focused in on
dry.
stopping it for sure. But yeah, no, it wasn't. And they needed to go through the air. And the narrative has been with this team, as we've seen, oh, the pass attack's terrible. Well, the pass attack wasn't bad at all. It was quite good.
No.
And I
Even,
think
there was a couple where, like there was one where it looked like Jake was getting sacked for sure, and he was able to spin out of it, and I think it was a long bomb to Reggie that ended up coming out of that play. But you and I talked about, I think, like, the tackles could be doing more. They're not irredeemable by any means, but the tackles could certainly be giving Jake more time in the pocket. I was actually timing it on my phone and, like, scribbling it
yeah.
down, like, how
Tell
much
me more
time
about
does
this, 'cause this is
Kelly
awesome
have in
that
the
you did that.
pocket?
I'm not trying to interrupt, but I do want to give you credit for this because you said in the middle of the game, you were like, "Oh, I'm going to time the next couple plays." Where I was like, "Ah, man, that's Cami doing the real work." I'm not like
It's
I
because
just
I
like
don't trust my eyes. I have what I think I see, and then I need numbers to back it up. And what we were seeing is legit, like, just timing, like, from when the quarterback gets the ball to when they have to make a decision. Jake really had less than 2 seconds on average before he had to make a play or he did make a play, and they were seeing a lot of success with just get the ball, get rid of it immediately. Some of those short completions with the high percentage, great, but John Kelly was getting like 3, 4 seconds, like doubling him on so many opportunities. So, I mean, yeah, over an extended period of time, this is something that we feel like we've been seeing. If that sample size kind of holds true, it's like, yeah, obviously the pass game isn't going to see that much success when he has to make so many snap decisions. I don't agree with a lot of the decision making that has happened. And I have think fans do have, like, yeah, there's some things you can be unhappy about there, but man, they got to give him more of a chance to make something happen. But luckily, it all kind of came together last night, even though it was a loss. It was a loss that didn't really feel like a loss.
That's how I felt, and it's too late in the season for moral victories for the Stampeders. Like they need wins. But I'm sorry, like it was midway through the fourth quarter, you were tied with a team that nobody else has beaten
Mhm,
through the entire season. And like for me, to be honest, like I will include last week's loss to the Bombers. Like those aren't the losses that I think you lose too much sleep over if you're the Stampeders. It's those losses to Ottawa and Montreal which make these
mhm,
losses more painful. But I certainly, and you said it, I saw more than enough from Jake Mayer here to say, like, okay, call off the, you know, call off the trial. This guy is a young quarterback, and we see what he can do
mhm,
when he's feeling confident, when the offense is giving him that, when the offensive line is giving him that time, and the arm's there, the accuracy was there. I
mhm.
thought,
Yeah.
and there were a couple fourth quarter plays where, to be honest, I thought that he got the ball where they needed to. And I'm not saying that they were easy catches. I'm not saying that they were even like quote unquote drops, but like, potentially if the receivers had been able to hold on to that ball, and I potentially on a couple of them think that maybe they should have, I
Mhm.
think the Stamps might have won that. I think Jake Mayer deserves a lot of flowers for the way that he played on Friday night.
And there was a lot of mental fortitude displayed in that game too. I thought for sure that things were about to come off the rails when he was sacked by Folarin Ormalade. Look in his eyes, I'm like, "Oh, man, this is gonna be BC all over again," because they still hadn't had a touchdown in what, 10 quarters at that point?
Mhm.
But no, they really were able to swing it back and get something going, and now they have a couple against the Elks where they really, really need to build.
This is out of I actually want to keep going with this, but who had the better revenge game against their former team? Forlan Malade against the Stampeders or James Butler against the BC Lions? Did not prep you for this
Oh
question.
my god. I know, it's so hard to say. I kinda like the James Butler one, I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
but Flo, I really like Flo as a person, and he's just so fun to watch.
The funny thing is
I
that
don't
if we
wanna take
asked
anything away from him on that front.
two, like we both know Flo, because he was here in Calgary for something. He would be like, Danny, don't call it a revenge game. Like he has no issue with the Stampeders. He's the nicest guy. Like, we're not taking away from Flo. I also just like the fact that Butler, like ultimately, like the expectations for that Lions Ticats game and the fact that Butler was so good sort of make it stand out. But I mean, 3 sacks for Fuller and Armalade. It's why it hurts so much to see him leave this offseason, really. He is emerging as one of this league's absolute elite defensive ends. And I know that a point that Derek Taylor, who's probably the best with stats across the country, he said last year, pay attention to the pressures as much as the sacks. And he said Flo is absolutely one of the elite guys. And now those are turning into sacks. So I think we're seeing it. And it I think it probably hurt a little bit if you're a Stamps fan to
Oh,
watch your
absolutely.
former guy do that against you.
And here's a useless stat. There's, no methodology to it, but just, like, from my job with Global, we used to always do the junior reporter with the Stampeders, and I always judge the players based on how they interact with these kids, and Flo was one of the best. So is
I
Royce
mean,
Mankey.
he's the best. He is a guy who
Yeah,
like
the
to get
poor kid couldn't pronounce his name. He's like, "You can call me Flo."
I love that. He's also an incredibly smart man who doesn't need to be playing football. So he's one of those guys who I just like appreciate. Like he could do something else if he wanted to.
Mhm,
Um, and I'm just going to introduce him very quick. Just I feel like every time I talk about him and talk about him leaving the Stampeders, I very earlier in the season in one of my stories referred to like the Stamps chose someone over Flow. That's just simply not what happened. Just based under the cap, with the Argos paying Chad Kelly significantly less than most of the other starting quarterbacks, my understanding is that they just like had more money to pay Flow.
mhm,
And of course, if you're a CFL player with a very limited, um, short career, and Flo's had injury issues, take the money. So he joined the Grey Cup champions for more money. Like nothing the Stamps could have done about that.
yeah,
He did the smart move for himself in his career, but it was as frustrating as it was because not emotionally speaking, but as someone who covers the team, like them winning that game would have made things a little more fun going into the back half of the year. Um, and I thought that with the negativity surrounding Jake, with everything, it would have been nice for the for the group to get rewarded for a good game plan, an explosive offense. But ultimately, that special teams play and a couple balls thrown deep over the middle where the
Mhm.
Argos just kind of caught the Stamps out. Were the difference here. And against the Lions a couple weeks ago, I think we saw those balls over the middle and we saw them again. Did the defensive performance, because I think there are people who would say, okay, well, the Stamps defense looked great against the Bombers, but the Bombers didn't have Zach Collaros at quarterback.
Mhm.
And then earlier this month, the last really great defensive performance was against the Argos, who didn't have Chad Kelly for basically 3/4 of that game at
Mhm.
quarterback. But they got torn apart by the Lions. And then the Argos did a really nice job finding big plays and finding scoring opportunities and taking advantage of them. Did the defensive performance concern you?
I don't know about concerned. It definitely looked like an anomaly for me. Like, I kind of throw out the BC game when I consider what this team really is this year because, there's always just going to be
You
that
have bad games.
sticker. Yeah, yeah, bad games. Like, I don't that one doesn't sway me too much one way or the other. Yeah, it just seemed a little out of character just because since Corey Mace has gone to the Argos, we've seen so many incredible defensive battles. From a
Mhm.
pure fan watching perspective, it's kinda great to just see the offense run wild, though. If you think about that first Stamps game that was on CBS this year, it's like, man, this is a terrible representation of how entertaining the CFL is. This was
Yeah.
one that I wish got that kind of exposure.
Yes. I'm trying to do a little bit of math right now to try to
Oh, no.
I know. Well, I'm trying to pull out my calculator on my phone. I can't. I mean, my thing is like this is where the stats that we do have currently are a little bit difficult. Like the Stamps, we're allowing 25.5 points per game, which is the fourth worst in the CFL.
Mhm,
Heading into this game, and then they obviously they they allowed 39, so that number has gone
mhm,
up. But to put all of that on the defense, like, doesn't actually make sense because we know that there have been how many return touchdowns? There have been
mhm.
so many pick sixes. So the actual points allowed is a completely like it's a faulty stat in this
Yeah.
particular case because there have been so many other points of the other phases um, have allowed. But yeah, it that again, this is one of those ones where, as you said earlier, I just go back the season and there have been opportunities to turn these losses
Mhm,
into wins. Like I don't think they're that far off. And I sort of know your answer here, but there comes a point in any season um, where you just the record is what matters, and you begin to think, okay, well, are these losses going to add up to a non-playoff season? Like, are close losses actually who the Stampeders are?
mhm.
And that sucks to ask, but it's either a feature or it's a bug. And I'm unfortunately like you don't get the chance to go back and replay those games. So those losses
Mhm.
count just the same. And they've got two games
And
against Edmonton.
unfortunately, the conversation is just going to be extended like it was with the Flames last season because you have 2 games coming up against an opponent that isn't the best barometer for what your team actually is.
Mhm.
So it's just going to be a prolonged conversation until it's set in stone. They're making it or they're not.
So do you let us say we are recording this? I always acknowledge when we're recording. We were recording this on Sunday afternoon. So the Elks have not hosted the Ottawa Red Blacks yet.
Mhm.
If the Elks win that game, they're on a 2-game winning streak coming into the Labor Day Classic, and the Stamps are on a 3-game losing streak. Is I mean, I think that the Stamps, if they're going to salvage their season, need to win both of these Labor Day
Both of them.
back-to-back games.
Yeah.
I've asked Ryan Ballantyne, who is always going to be very optimistic. Do you feel like a reasonable expectation at this point is the Stamps win both those games?
It's not yeah, it has to be the expectation. How could you not? You should be aiming so high on those ones. That's where you really it could be so good for the team to have everything kind of come together. They've had good defensive games. They've had a couple of great offensive games. This is where you need it all to come together and prove that you can package it.
Yeah,
There's
no,
just no other way. Like in front of those fans, like you have to.
this is sort of the season right here. Like, let's be honest. They need to be
Fans care
5 and
more
8.
about this than they do about the Grey Cup sometimes.
I don't think I think fans care more. I don't know that the players care more. I
Oh,
still
yeah.
think yes. But I mean, I think that in the rivalry, I mean, this is just so big. And what it would do for Edmonton to beat the Stamps in these games, you can't allow it to happen. If the rivalry matters, you gotta put your foot down on the neck. I don't know what I'm trying to not say anything offensive. Put your foot down. You gotta end the Elks' hope with 2 wins here. I know you
Gotta
watched
put
the
them
other
out of their
games.
misery. Maybe that's a nicer way to put it.
Yeah, well said. Well said. You should be the podcast host, probably not me.
Ooh, I don't know about
I will
that.
also say, for people who don't know, you are. It's incredibly kind that you made time today because you are. I'll let you explain it, but you are at a golf tournament in a professional capacity, and are currently in your car with your laptop on your knees, which you're much smaller than me. I could not physically do.
If
Resting
my
your
screen
laptop
tilts, it's because I'm trying to give my calf a break.
yes, but it's absolutely incredible that you're physically able to pull that off because I definitely couldn't do that. My knees would just fall off. They'd be like, "No, we don't agree to this. You're nearly 40, Danny." Um, you are. I think it's worth shouting out that you are at
Oh,
a very
yeah.
important golf tournament right now.
Yes, I'm down here at Ryan Strasnitzky's launch charity golf tournament. They're raising money to put in a paragolfer here at Heritage Point Golf Course, which is incredible. It's like a combo golf cart wheelchair that lifts the user so they can take a standing swing. And you don't need to be a wheelchair user to use this. It can be really anyone with any mobility issues. If you have a broken leg, if you have MS, if you're stiff and not getting around that easily, these things can make a world of difference. But this year, they also have the Rad Society down here that has all of this different adaptive equipment. I just saw like another similar to the Paragolfer, but it's this device that can lift you to stand, but it is all terrain. It's got floodlights on it. You can use a crossbow with it, and you can go fly fishing with it, and you can go into the water up to where the engine is.
That's unbelievable.
It is so cool, some of the things that you can do. And I actually took a run at Chris Cedarstrand in a wheelchair rugby chair.
How'd that go?
Pretty good. He couldn't really fit in the chair. His legs are kind of sticking out, so I had a bit of an advantage there, and he's a bit of a sitting duck, but beat him in something. But also
That's
speaking of physically demanding things, did you or did you not try the low wire at Cirque du Soleil this week?
So I did not. I had a Cirque du Soleil athlete come and be a guest on Rob's show, but I did not get down to there. We will both be on Wednesday evening at Cirque du Soleil, which we're all very excited about. My dear friend Alex Kencott has done a great job helping us get set up. So thank you to her. You did. I saw a video, to be perfectly honest with you. Alex sent me a video being like, she's a natural. I don't know how much gymnastics or whatever you have. You did stuff that I can't
Yeah.
do. Again, I hurt my shoulder playing slow pitch. So I'm not doing Cirque du Soleil style anything right now. That's not for me. I've aged out.
I can't wait to see like the lore that this injury gets down the road. Like your trap is going to be like, when you meet those guys who played like a little bit of junior hockey and they're like, if I didn't sprain my ankle in junior, I would have made it to the show. That's gonna be you and your shoulder now.
I mean, I will say that at 39, I have no ambitions of playing professional baseball, so it won't quite be that. But I would just like my slow pitch team to win a game. Let us get back to CFL.
I actually have a question for you, CFL.
Yes. Okay, do it.
Daryl Davis had an article out this week. I don't know if you read it, but he suggested moving the uprights to the back of the end zone. I want to know your thoughts, questions, and concerns on that one.
What was his rationale? Like, I find it very I'm of two minds with any sort of changes to the layout of the field. First of all, I speak to a lot of people who tell me that like the reason that they like people who love football and actually want to be CFL fans who just have now these are people in their early 20s or even late teens who have grown up being able to watch the NFL, and they find that like they turn on the CFL and it just the bigger field, the longer field, the everything being up, they say that that is their barrier to entry. It is certainly not for me. And I do, but you know, if there are existential threats to the league, I actually never think that it's a bad idea to consider some changes. I also know that what makes the game special is is the bigger field, is three downs, all of that. So I'm generally opposed to it. Um, but moving to the back of the end zone, I mean, is the idea basically that Cody Fajardo wouldn't have hit the post and they would have like, what's it's not a surprise that that's coming out of Saskatchewan. No, I haven't read the article. I'm honestly not opposed to it, is what it comes down to. Like,
Mhm.
I don't think for me that is one of those things that would make absolutely no difference in terms of my enjoyment of the game. With it being further back, would it encourage teams to go for it more, or would it encourage
Mhm.
teams to punt? I don't know. So like I'd have to sort of see the numbers on that a little bit. But of all of the changes that you could make to the CFL field, the one that like people would get mad because people get mad about everything, but that I personally would just roll my eyes and be like, okay, is that like there was a too many men on one side of the center call
Yeah.
against the Argos this week, and I was like, oh, I literally didn't know that was a rule. Like I some of
Me
this
neither. I
stuff,
was so confused, but hey, led to a
yeah.
touchdown.
Well, I mean, where do you stand? I don't. For me, that's just not. It likely eliminates. You have to get rid of the extra point for a miss because any
Mhm.
miss just results in a point in that situation. But yeah, I would not be opposed to it. I also am not out here going to advocate for it necessarily, but
Yeah, I
wouldn't
mean,
bother me.
I'm not super keen on it. It does lead to some drama with the misses there, but just the potential for that. But I don't know. Honestly, like if there was one rule that like I would change, it probably would be adding the fourth down.
Oh,
I
this is
don't
going
think
to get
that's
us in trouble.
controversial. Oh no, I'm sorry.
No, no. I mean, I
But
think
like
the
if
whole
there was one thing, if I had to change one of the things to make it more accessible to an NFL fan base, that would probably be
so
the one I changed.
yeah, no, and I again, I don't think that it's offensive to
I also,
acknowledge.
if I was in charge, I would have named the Atlantic team the Halifax Hash Browns, so do with that what you will.
Fair. I mean, I think that the thing always with the fourth down is that you have to make the field smaller because
Mhm,
if you have four downs on a field that wide, no matter what, like all you have to do is get 3 yards down. So it actually is going to discourage teams from going for big plays. The smart thing is just to do tiny dinky plays to get you 3 to 3.5 yards, and then you have four downs. So you'll ultimately, as long as you get 3 yards three
mhm,
times, you just have a 1 yard fall over the and you get the first down. So I don't think it works without narrowing the field. And I mean, an 110 narrow yard field would just look ridiculous. So we can't do that. I do think that it all like that's the problem is it one can't happen without the other.
mhm. Okay, I guess I had thought of it that way.
I for the record, I like legitimately um the four down thing makes people so upset, and I understand why. Like, I do think that maintaining the traditions, it's not something that necessarily upsets me. And the reality is, like, if these spring leagues succeed, the CFL is going to have to make some changes so that Americans consider it worthwhile to come up here, because there's just an advantage to putting. If you were trying to make the NFL for any 23-year-old player with ambitions of making the NFL, putting tape on the American-sized field, like getting tape where you're just playing at it
Mhm,
in a professional system on that field, is more valuable to American scouts than coming up and playing in the CFL. That's my
mhm.
understanding. But ultimately, I was there for the Twitter wars of 2021 and 2022, and my stance is
You
I
were
love the
there,
Canadian game.
you were an active participant. You were writing letters to the home front, like or back
I
home
was
front.
very involved in the XFL battle. I like was very vocal on that one. I was slightly less involved in the rule changes stuff because the reality is like I mean, we just moved on from the fact that they moved the hash marks, and that's had a profound impact on the way the game is played, and we don't talk about it. There were people who were upset about that. I don't hear anything about it a season and a half later. The adjustments were made. The game continues. So I'm always more about the tweaks. But again, my number one, and I'm not trying to sort of be dismissive. I do want to talk about the other games as well as Labor Day quickly, but um, I know. My number one thing before any change gets made is just get me a functional stat system that allows me to reference years past, games past, and that I can trust in game. Although the in game, the live stats are much better now, and in
Mhm,
general, I trust them. There's some tinkering that still needs to be done, but it's more the ability, like I, the fact that I couldn't just go. I knew in my head that Kamar Jordan had 249 yards in 2018 in the game before
mhm,
the Labor Day Classic, not being able to just go back and check that remains deeply frustrating.
mhm.
So, quickly, I know you watched Hamilton, BC. I said in my intro, BC has now lost 3 of 4. They lost to Saskatchewan. They got crushed by the Bombers. The only win that they've had in August is a destruction of the Calgary Stampeders.
Mhm.
I don't have BC on the same level as Toronto and Winnipeg anymore. Do you?
I don't, because I actually was gonna ask you too. One of the things that I had on like my little list was like, for you, who's a contender and who's a pretender? And my pretender was actually going to be BC, to go
Mm.
from such a beatdown of Calgary to, what was it? Hatcher, what he had a touchdown, just cracked 100 yards, and
Yeah.
he definitely had their best offensive output for the Lions.
Yeah. I mean, if you take out their games against the Alberta teams, 4 wins against Calgary and Edmonton, the Lions are 3 and 4. I don't think that they're a pretender. I like my power rankings would be Toronto number 1.
Mhm,
Although, like, to be honest, it's a 1A and 1B. Like, I honestly have the Bombers and Argos right there. Out of respect,
mhm,
I said this in the intro a little bit, but out of respect for you're the Grey Cup champions, you're the only team with 1 loss. It's hard for me to have the Argos behind the Bombers, but at the same time,
mhm,
like, secretly, who is the team that I in a 1-game playoff elimination game, who is the team that I'm most
mhm,
scared of? It's the Bombers. The Argos have had 3 bye weeks. They've played 2 less games than the Bombers, but I had a top 3, and now I have a top 2, and
mhm.
then in right after that is Montreal and BC, teams that I think. I mean, BC started so strong
Yeah.
that
I mean, their
are
record still looks good.
well, they're
They're good
7 and
at,
4. They're
like,
making the playoffs. They're not missing the
yeah, no, they're
playoffs.
not missing the playoffs. It was also just, like, kinda weird that they got dummied on home turf, like, that broke. They hadn't been beaten at home yet
They looked
this
awful.
season.
They looked really bad. And again, I would come out and we said, oh well, you sometimes have to within the within the run of a season. There are games that unless other than the truly great teams, you have a bad game here and there.
Mhm,
Like in hockey, I remember my first season, the Flames got crushed 5-0. And I was like gonna do a big story. And my colleague was like, I don't know, man, like you lose a couple 5-0 games in an 82 game season. Like
mhm,
there are bad nights. Um, and I would be willing to dismiss this as that. Like, okay, something was wrong. You guys just didn't have the right energy. It wasn't there.
mhm.
Except that that was supposed to be the game where they got crushed by the Bombers less than a month ago. That was supposed to be the game that was like, okay, you get one. Let's see it. They come back. They beat the Stamps badly, but then they lost to the Riders, who, I most of my guests here just don't trust the Riders at all. Don't trust their quarterback situation. And now you lose to the Ticats, who I truly believed prior to this weekend were the worst team in the CFL. I thought they were
I
worse than the
mean, to the
Elks.
Ticats' credit, you knew they were gonna be full in piss and vinegar after losing to Edmonton.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Except that,
Like,
like,
that's gonna, no matter what, that's gonna give you juice in your next game. It's like what did Rod Peterson call it? The dead cat bounce,
okay,
where you
I've never
fall
heard that.
so hard you bounce back up a little bit. Kinda
That's
like when you
fair.
get a new coach, it's just like one of those losses where, like, a team snapping a historic losing streak against you, you're gonna get a little jump back from that. You are the dead cat bouncing back up.
I just thought that the Lions would have also had a little piss of vinegar after losing to the Riders, right? Like, and you're
Yeah.
at home. I don't know. That was one of those losses that, and it's not. It is the combination of the three of losing 3 or 4. Where
Mhm,
how can I say you are as good as the Argos who have lost once, or the Bombers who beat you by like beat the brakes off of you, and you've lost 3 or 4.
mhm,
Again, I honestly think that the Montreal Winnipeg game was sort of fascinating, and just seeing Winnipeg make the halftime adjustments, and it was
mhm.
a close game, and then Winnipeg was like, not anymore. Like they bullied them, and again, like I'm so bored of saying how good Winnipeg is, but they're so good. They're so good.
I thought it was gonna be a close one, and I, like, went to the gym, and I was so bummed out my gym didn't have the game on because I was really looking forward to just, watching it there, and I came back, and I purposefully didn't look at my phone to not spoil it, and I was like, I saw the score on, sports, and I was like, "What happened?"
I know. What happened is the Winnipeg Blue
Goodness
Bombers
gracious.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're so good, and Zach Collaros is not gonna throw is not gonna turn the ball over to you better kill them while you have the chance. That's
Mhm.
what I'll say. Um, before we quickly go over the Labor Day games, I'm trying to keep you. You are busy, so I'm not trying to keep you any longer. You said you had a list. Do you have anything else you want to throw at me?
Ooh, see what else do I have on the list?
You
Well, I
don't have.
mean, I kind of brought it up, but yeah, you got to give me your pretender, your contender, and your pretender. Well, you gave us the contenders. You gave us your 1A, 1B.
I have those four as my like who I would pick to be in the East and West final. I I still like this Alouettes team, and I inevitably I at the end of a CFL season look back and I'm like, oh, everything I thought in August was wrong. Like things do change as the weather gets colder at post Labor Day. I just think that the Alouettes have there's been ups and downs, but I think that they're a good team that is working towards being great, and they're not there yet. And that means that there will be wins and losses. They're not the Argos or the Bombers right now, but I think that like there's a toughness to them that I like. They've had a little bit of adversity they've had to go through. I think that they're a team that I'm really excited to see how they match up with the Argos at season's end. And so I have them sort of them. And then the problem with the Lions is I've just seen them right now. I'm really low on them. Do I think realistically the Ticats, like, no, every other team for me is a pretender. With the caveat that I think if the Riders get Trevor Harris back, I still think that he is capable of winning you a playoff game. I think he's just a veteran with those smarts. If they get him back, which I honestly don't know if it's a possibility, I still think the Stamps, because they're losing all these close games, like it's sort of a matter of just one or two things. So I can see them going on a run. The Ticats, if Bo gets back and is better, there's all these ifs. Every other team has a big if. Every other team other than Winnipeg and Toronto has an if. And then, so I guess that's it. The most boring answer possible is that I think the two best teams in the league are the two best teams in the league. Like
hot take.
Yeah. But I mean, if there was a team outside of that top four who I would expect to potentially make a run between the Ticats, Riders, Stamps, and Elks, who would I pick? I'm just not going to pick because I still think it's probably the Stampeders, and that's just going to get people from out of market mad at me. But it's the Stampeders or the Riders. I trust them much more than I trust the Ticats or the Red Blacks.
Fair enough.
What if?
One of the question marks with Edmonton, what do you expect from Trey Ford coming into the Labor Day game?
I have been incredibly impressed. I think that the coaching staff, for all the crap it's taken, and I don't understand why he wasn't starting games earlier in the year. I just genuinely, he showed me enough last year that I thought, he should have been given a shot. But I think they've done a nice job of managing him and not asking him to do too much. Not overwhelming him, not asking him. He's not expected to be Peyton Manning right now. So they've built a system around a guy who, has some limitations, but is growing and getting better. And I think the Stamps may be in for a bit of a dogfight on Labor Day and in the replay. And I think that the offense needs to score. Like what we saw against Toronto is what we need to see. I think the Trey Ford, if you give him enough chances, I think that Elks team can be opportunistic and give a fight. Maybe not to anybody, but on their day. They didn't beat the Ticats for nothing. And I wish that I had 2 weeks or their second to last game up. They took a big lead against the Bombers. They got beat pretty badly in the end, but there's something there that is growing. So I think the Stamps need to be ruthless, and they need to be at their best to comfortably win those games.
Completely. And I also don't know that Calgary would be the team that's able to dig themselves out of a similar pit should that happen. They got to be on it from first snap.
From 22-0? No, I don't think we've seen any indication that they can really that they can do that. Now again, we saw what happened when you get Reggie, Markin, and another receiver. Because I to be honest, I don't I liked what Marky Dambles did a little
Mhm.
bit. I think they've got to figure out a way to have Trey Odoms Dukes available as well. You can't have him on the practice roster, but I I think we're beginning. Look, I believe in the Stampeders offense, and I think that they're improving.
Mhm.
You're going to be at Labor Day,
I'm not. This is gonna be the
okay?
first one I've missed since I moved to Calgary.
Okay.
I'm gonna be in Italy.
Oh yeah, you should definitely be in Italy. I forgot about that. Yeah, you
Yeah.
have a fun
Yeah,
trip.
I'm, going to be drinking some wine and hopefully, like, overnight be, checking in on the game. I'm, like, 100% like I'm a psycho when I, like, really wanna know what happens, like, even at Stampede, I was at the bar and I had 770 going on in my ear trying to keep up with what was
Gotcha.
going on, so I'm gonna be doing the same thing overseas.
Fair enough. This is something I try to do for our sort of going into the week. It's weird because the games are so far away right now. Like we're talking on a
Mhm,
Sunday and the games don't actually start until next Saturday. I just ask people to pick their game of the week. That's all. You can have whatever reason you want, but what is
mhm,
the game that this is harder on Labor Day because I just think that we should say that watch the Labor Day games. But you've
mhm,
got BC Montreal, which is actually an interesting game from a competitive standpoint, but it's always going to get overshadowed by the other three. I mean, you've got
mhm,
Winnipeg at Saskatchewan, which is always one of the biggest games of the
mhm,
year, and then you have the two sort of traditional Labor Day games on Labor Day, Argos Ticats and Edmonton Calgary. It's just funny, like for me, from a competitive standpoint, the most interesting game, like the one that matters the most here, arguably, like or the one that I feel like I'm going to learn the most from, is probably BC Montreal. But I'm here in Calgary. I cover the Stamps. I love the All Alberta, so I'm taking Calgary
I'm
Edmonton as
going
my
all
game of the week.
Alberta. I know it's
Yeah,
not very fun if we both pick the same thing, but I'm not gonna pretend there's any other one there that really interests me more.
fair enough. Yeah, it matters, and again, as we said, it matters because the Stamps have to salvage their season with 2 wins
Mhm.
here. So, well, that is perfect. Well, Cami, I said 35, and we've taken up 40 minutes, and you are in the middle of an actual day where you're working. So I don't want to keep
I
you
can
for any
see my
longer.
cameraman pacing outside the car.
Oh, you must want to kill me. He's gonna, yeah,
No, not at all. I hope next time we get to have a charcuterie board.
yeah. I've got to get you into the studio. I mean, you've been in the studio a million times, so it's not like that's a
Yeah.
treat. But I so appreciate you taking the time. Is there anything you wanna throw to let people know where they can check you out?
Sure. I'm not tweeting as much about sports these days since I'm not officially on the sports beat with Global Calgary, but I'm at Cami Kepke Global. Try to share some insights, mostly memes, and where we're at right now. And later tonight, if you want to tune into Global News, we're going to be talking about Straz's launch tournament.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And yeah, definitely check you out. You're one of the smartest people in Calgary sports. So I just so appreciate you being on. And I don't know, I'll see you this week. We'll be talking. But thank
Yeah,
you
I'll
so
see
much
you
for your
soon.
time. Yeah, thanks so much for your time.
All right, later, pal.
Guys, what are you doing tonight? I don't know what you're doing tonight. You're probably looking for something. Guys, you got to go check out Mug's Pub. This is probably my favorite pub in the city, 1330 15th Avenue Southwest, right in the Beltline. Honestly, they do it all. I, for years, played trivia on Wednesday nights at Mug's. It's the best trivia night in the city. Other nights, they got music. They got specials every single night. Some of the best food and drink specials in the entire city are at Mug's Pub. You want wine, you want beer, you want cocktails. They got it all. Big fan of their fish and chips. They got some amazing pizza. You want to watch the game? They got TV screens. You want to just have a drink with friends? Perfect spot to do it. You want to have some food? As I said, it's delicious. Mug's Pub. We love having them as a sponsor. We love having them just down the road from us here at our studios. Check out Mug's Pub. They're the best. Thank you to Cami. That was great. It was so nice to have her on the show. For her to take time like that, she doesn't have to do that. She's working today. For her to take time out of her busy schedule is absolutely awesome. Super appreciate her insight. And yeah, guys, here we are. We're finally here. No, it doesn't feel like it. Doesn't feel like it to me. It's still Sunday, but you know, it's time for Labor Day games. This is my favorite weekend of the year. This is my favorite sort of week and a half stretch going into the Labor Day replay here with Calgary and Edmonton. I started my career on Labor Day in 2016, covering the Labor Day Classic, and it changed my life in a lot of ways. That game and everything that's come since. So this game special to me personally. It's special to all of us here in Alberta. And then you got the other. I mean, this is just such a fun slate of weekends. As I was saying to Cami, BC Montreal's interesting. That's a fun game. Normally, we don't even think about the sort of fourth game on the schedule. It's all about Winnipeg Sask, as it should be. Them playing Sunday. That game is always huge. Love that sort of prairie rivalry, that Central Canada rivalry. You know, we'll see what the Riders can do. The Bombers look great right now, but a win there, can you imagine? Changes the whole narrative again. Feels like the narrative flips every second week here in the CFL. Argos, Ticats on Monday. That's the early game. And then, yeah, you got Elks and Calgary. I'll say it before we go off. I hate that this game is 5 p.m. I wish that this was a mid-afternoon start. I don't understand the reasons. I have not unpacked those reasons, but this is a game that I do believe should be starting at 2. You got families out; they can get home for dinner time. Kids have school the next day. It's sort of the end of summer. I don't actually know that kids have school the next day, but I assume that they do. Typically, that's used after Labor Day is when people go back to school. But one way or another, look, 5 p.m. This is a game that people used to come in from all over the province to watch. You get people from Edmonton coming back. You finish the game at 5 or 6. People in Edmonton can get back to Edmonton. Finish the game at 8:30. It's a lot harder. So I hate that this game starts at 5, but it does not temper my excitement. It's Calgary, Edmonton. It's the Labor Day Classic. It's all three of these. The Toronto Hamilton game, Winnipeg Sask. These are some of the biggest games of the year. Always deliver high drama. So much at stake. I can't wait. Haven't quite figured out what we're gonna do. Definitely, we're gonna try to blow this up. This is, this one matters. This one counts, and I'm excited about it. So we're gonna try to have the best guests I can, break down these big rivalry games, have some fun this week. But either way, thank you to Mugs Pub. We love Mugs Pub. Thank you to Fraser and Fig. Thank you to Cami Kepke. Thank you to everyone listening, watching. Please like and subscribe. Share with your friends. This is live from the 55. It's Labor Day week. Guys, this is what we do it for. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.